Hello guys, and welcome to this video. As we get closer to the end of the year, I felt it to be right for at least to look at what to expect from Canada immigration in 2025, especially with all the changes that have happened in 2024. It will be good to know some of the things that we can expect in 2025. So that is what we'll be focusing on today's video. The only way to know what to do in 2025 is to possibly review some of the things that we've seen happen in 2024. The truth is, Canada immigration landscape in 2025 is undergoing significant changes, which is mainly driven by the need to address a lot of the pressures or challenges that Canada is experiencing in regards to things like housing affordability, the strain on public services, and also public sentiment shifts. Because some of us who have been here for a couple of years can bear witness to the fact that the Canada that we came into just a few years ago is different from what Canada is now. So the public sentiment towards immigration is even changing, which is forcing the government to make a lot of changes. These adjustments include a substantial reduction in the immigration targets, program-specific modifications, and also focus on balancing economic needs with integration capacities, which means that they are being more specific in some of the things that they are doing when it comes to immigration, where they are focusing on mainly the things that the country is going to need or the things that the individual provinces are going to need. So what used to happen in the past, where there's mass immigration, is something that is actually being reduced. In today's video, we are going to review a few of the things that have changed or are going to change, so that you are up to date on all these things. The first one that we are going to look at is the significant reduction in immigration targets, and I've done a video about this one. I'll try and link it up here, so if you haven't watched it, try to watch it, and at least you can see some of the reductions that have been made this year when it comes to immigration targets. Because by knowing some of these targets, it will help you to strategize, because you know which areas to focus on. One thing that we saw in 2024 was basically the announcement by the immigration minister concerning a marked reduction in immigration targets starting in 2025, whereby they are also capping new permanent resident targets at 395,000, which is down from 485,000 that they had in 2024. So if you look at it, basically they've reduced the targets that they had this year by over 90,000, which basically means that about 90,000 people who could have gotten the chance to move to this country are going to miss out. So only is the target reducing in 2025. This downward trend is going to continue in subsequent years, with targets of about 380,000 in 2026 and 365,000 in 2027, which means for the next 4 years they are going to continually reduce the targets of people that they bring into the country. The government's decision reflected mounting concerns over first, like I said, was housing affordability, because with the Canada's rapid immigration growth, it has put immense pressure on the housing market. We all saw previous months or years ago where we even have students complain about not being able to find accommodation and all that. With most of these countries, one thing you realize is they try to plan things out based on the population growth, and with the soaring population growth, they are not able to meet these targets. So one of the reasons why they are doing this is to make sure that they can curb that growth and be able to meet the housing needs, to make sure that everybody who needs to get accommodation or housing actually is able to get one. Secondly, there is also stress on public service when it comes to capacity, because strains on systems like healthcare, education, and transportation have highlighted the challenges of integrating a growing number of these newcomers. I recently saw a video, and if I'm able to at least put it on, I'll show you, where people were actually chasing the bus like we do back home in a third world country, which was very surprising. It was something that personally I haven't seen before. You see people actually running after a bus and trying to run into the bus like we do in a third world country, which is new here. So there's actually strain on some of these systems, and they are trying to curb the growth so that they can meet all these needs accordingly. One thing is, while these reductions may alleviate infrastructure and service challenges, they could lead to unintended consequences, particularly like labor shortage in key sectors, because Canada has a long reliance on immigration to sustain economic growth, fill skill gaps, and support their aging population. This policy shift could slow progress in some of these areas. And me personally, I always say that you can look at it two ways. You can either look at it as a cup half full or half empty. For people who are currently in the country, this might be good news for a lot of them, because with these shortages that this is going to create, Canada will need to rely on people within the country to be able to fill those gaps, which might be advantage for you if you are looking for possibly employment and all those things, because you wouldn't have to now compete against people from outside the country. Secondly is the impact on provincial and nominee program, that's the PNP. Provincial nominee programs is really a cornerstone of Canada's economic immigration strategy, because these allow provinces to nominate candidates who meet specific labor needs of that particular province. That way, individual provinces can now target people that they feel can satisfy labor shortages in their individual provinces, instead of relying on the federal to get that one done for them. However, with the federal government having to drastically reduce PNP admissions in 2025, capping the number at around 55,000, which is down from previously 120,000. This reduction is going to have a far-reaching implication on a lot of things. So basically, with the reduction on these PNP numbers, one of the things that is going to lead to is something like regional disparity, because provinces like Manitoba and Saskatchewan, they mainly rely heavily on PNP to attract workers for agriculture and healthcare. And these ones are going to face significant challenges in filling roles. So if you are somebody who possibly might have some of these skill sets, it might be good news for you to maybe target some of these provinces, because they are going to have a need to fill roles in those areas, because with the reduction in the PNP numbers, they are going to have limited slots to give out, which means some employers might not be able to get people to fill roles that they need them to get into, which might be an advantage for you if you have a skill set to satisfy some of these roles. And secondly, there is also going to be an economic impact, because these programs being curtailed will slow economic growth in these regions that depend on immigration for their workforce development, because most of these provinces have heavily relied on immigration to be able to meet their economic growth. And I have a funny feeling that some of these provinces are going to react to it accordingly to be able to satisfy the labor needs in their individual provinces. So if you found yourself in any of these provinces, my advice is to keep your eye open for any opportunities that might be available. A typical example, I know Manitoba, for instance, was issuing out open work permit to people who were in their pool. And right now, I think the last I read about it is getting close now. So definitely in the coming years, a lot of these provinces are going to get creative on how they are going to bring people into their individual provinces to satisfy their labor needs. And sometimes in their bid to get creative, it might also influence who they nominate in their individual pools. That's why I always advise that you keep an eye out and monitor some of these draws that they run and see who they are targeting. The second change that I want us to look at is the policy adjustment in Quebec. Quebec, for instance, just recently announced a closure on two key immigration pathways. That is the Skilled Worker Selection Program, formerly known as the Regular Skilled Worker Program, and also the graduate stream of the Quebec Experience Program, that is the PEQ. These two programs, they temporarily put a hold on them. These suspensions took effect on June 30th, 2025. And the aim is to ensure that the province's capacity to integrate newcomers aligns with its infrastructure and labor market needs. However, this decision has sparked a great controversy because firstly, there is an impact on international students because many students relied on the PEQ as a pathway to permanent residency. That's why a lot of these people were actually choosing Quebec as a place to go and study, because their target was to use the PEQ as a way to transition to permanent residency. And this restriction mainly is going to deter future international students or applicants from even thinking of looking at Quebec, because if that's not there, that means they don't have their future in their own hands. Also, there's going to be sectorial challenges because Quebec's industries, especially healthcare and manufacturing, may face increasing labor shortage due to the restriction on immigration, because most of these industries rely on these immigrants as a way to satisfy their labor shortage. Quebec's policies reflect a broader trend of cautious immigration planning to balance growth with integration challenges. So if you are somebody who is thinking of going into Quebec, you have to know that these two programs are actually very on hold, so they might not be available for you when you go into Quebec. So you might have to find another pathway to permanent residency, at least in the short term. Number 4 is the refugee systems reform. Canada's refugee system has faced immense pressure with over 260,000 claims pending by late 2024. This is something that is not even imaginable. And to address this backlog, the federal government plans to introduce reforms aimed at expediting the processing of claims that are deemed unlikely to succeed. Personally, I've tried as much as possible not to speak about refugee claims because it's something that is very sensitive. And the funny thing is, you don't hear about the bad news a lot online because most people are not open to share their experiences. Me personally, I always say that if there is another avenue available to you, use that one instead of focusing on the refugee claim, because it is not as straightforward as most people will make you think. And you just need to speak to people who are using this pathway to see the strain on their finances, emotions, psychologically and mentally that they go through when they decide to pursue this journey. And most people are not open to share their experiences, so you don't hear about them. And as much as Canada is very welcoming to people who want to take refuge here and seek refugee status, they are also cautious of people who want to take advantage of the system. So one thing that they will be doing in 2025 is trying to find ways and means that they can sieve out the fake or the ones that they know that are not going to succeed. That way they can focus their needed resources on the ones that they know are very genuine. So one of the measures that we heard the minister speak about was one, faster rejection. So we are going to see that in 2025. What they are going to do is simplify the refusal process for inadmissible claims to reduce administrative burdens. So we are going to see a lot of refusals in 2025 because they are going to put in place a structure to sieve out the ones that they deem are not genuine. So this is something that you have to be aware of in 2025. Secondly is resource allocation, because what they plan to do is increasing funding to streamline the process and reduce delay, because to avoid the numbers increasing, they are going to throw money at it and make sure that the process is streamlined. That way, just like what they do with study permits or other applications, when it's streamlined, it makes it very easy to sieve out the ones that they know are not genuine and kick them out. And if it gets denied, you know what happens. As soon as it gets denied, that means they might now have to find a way of kicking you out of the country one way or the other. So in 2025, it's one thing that we are going to see happen when it comes to refugee claims. And while these changes aim to improve efficiency, We've had people argue that they may risk fairness and due process, which potentially could leave vulnerable asylum seekers without the adequate protection. But the truth is, they will definitely want to find an answer to this growing number of asylum seekers, because it's not something that is sustainable for them, especially when they are seeing that you have people who are international students who made a case that they have proof of funds and they have ties to their home country, coming into their country but still going ahead to seek asylum. They are definitely going to find answers to that one so that they can curb it. Number 5, we had temporary residents under review. Canada has seen a surge in temporary residents, including international students and foreign workers, over the past decade. And in response to concerns about housing shortage and public service strain, the government is implementing measures to reduce these numbers. That way they can keep the number of temporary residents down. Some of the key actions that we saw them introduce in 2024 was 1. Introducing international student caps. With this one, they are able to limit the number of study permits to alleviate the housing market pressure in urban settings, because if they're able to now allocate and limit the number of study permits being issued, it's definitely going to limit the number of international students who are going to come in, because most of these people who will come in as temporary residents and might evolve to case before they can get to possible permanent residency. So that's a quick win by reducing the number of international students. Secondly, we saw them reassess the temporary foreign worker program, which was another way that people used to come in, at least to come and work in the country. They introduced a stricter eligibility criteria to ensure that foreign workers fill only roles that are critical and are in shortage. So basically, if it's a role that somebody in country can fill, then it wouldn't make sense for them to bring somebody from outside the country to come and get a job done. And the truth is, these changes will have significant economic implication, because we've had educational institutions which rely heavily on international tuition fees facing funding challenges, because now students are not coming in to be able to help them to get the funds to fund most of these educational institutions, while industries which are dependent on temporary foreign workers are now struggling to find the necessary labor to fill those gaps. So what is going to happen in 2025 if we are going to see a lot of these institutions either having to evolve to only offer maybe some of the courses that they know are in demand, and as a result they can now get a necessary quota, or some of them might now have to end up getting closed or cut down on the number of programs that they're having to offer. Number 6 has to do with the business immigration. With this particular one, some way somehow there are opportunities amid all these policy changes, because in 2025 Canada's business immigration landscape is adapting to the evolving economic priorities and regional policy shifts. What do I mean by this? While certain provincial programs have been discontinued, the federal government continues to offer a robust pathway for entrepreneurs and investors. So basically, now they are going to focus on trying to give permanent residency to entrepreneurs and investors, people who can actually bring money into the economy to either create job opportunities for people to at least get employed, or bring in investments to at least set up businesses or invest in businesses, so that they can employ most of these people who are complaining about labor shortage. We've seen people now come into the country through this particular pathway. So if you are somebody who possibly is an entrepreneur and you can afford to invest in the country, and you are interested in maybe moving into Canada, this might be something that you want to look into in 2025. And just to go over them, possibly I'll try and make a standalone video on this particular one. The first one is the stand-up visa program. That's the SUV, which is going to remain a cornerstone of Canada's strategy to attract innovative entrepreneurs. What this one does is it will offer a pathway to permanent residency for individuals who can establish businesses that can create jobs and compete on a global scale. So not just any job, jobs that can compete on a global scale. An applicant must be able to secure support from a designated organization such as a venture capital fund, an angel investor group, or a business incubator, and meet the necessary language proficiency and settlement fund requirements before they can be issued the necessary documentation to secure the permanent residency. So if you are somebody who can get this one done, I would advise to look into the SUV program because it might be the pathway for you if you are an entrepreneur. Secondly, we have the Provincial Business Immigration Stream. Despite the closure of the Ontario Entrepreneur Stream, other provinces continue to operate business immigration programs. And some of these ones that at least we know of are in British Columbia. They still have the Entrepreneur Immigration Stream, which target experienced business people who are ready to invest and actively manage a business in the province. This program includes categories for regional entrepreneurs and strategic projects, even with specific criteria and investment thresholds. So if you are somebody who is an entrepreneur or business person and interested in British Columbia, you can look into the Entrepreneur Immigration Stream. Also, Alberta has the Self-Employment Farmer Stream. With this particular one, it's designated for individuals with farming experience and sufficient funds to purchase and develop a farm in Alberta. Applicants are supposed to demonstrate the ability to manage a farm and contribute to the province's agriculture sector. So if you are somebody who is an entrepreneur and possibly working in the agriculture area and interested in moving to Canada, Alberta Self-Employer Farmer Stream might be something that you want to look into. Then last but not the least, I will talk about Manitoba, where I am personally. Manitoba has the Business Investor Stream, which offers pathway for entrepreneurs and farm investors. And with this particular one, applicants are required to submit a business plan, have a minimum net worth, and make a significant investment in a new or existing business. And the truth is, personally, I've seen people who have taken advantage of this particular one, and some of them, all they did was bought into a particular franchise and use this particular pathway to move into the country. If you are somebody who possibly is an entrepreneur or an investor and you are looking to immigrate to Canada, my advice is conduct your thorough research and seek professional advice to identify the most suitable program for you. Factors to that include your investment requirements, personal net worth, and business experience, because these are going to be key, especially when it comes to the economic environment of your chosen province. And I always advise that you stay informed about policy changes, because this is very crucial, as immigration programs are subject to modifications based on the economic needs and government priorities. And engaging with an immigration consultant or a legal expert can provide you the valuable guidance through this particular application process. So don't take it for granted. Number 7 that I will speak on is the public sentiment and the political considerations that you need to make for 2025. Canada's immigration policies in 2025 reflect a shift in public sentiment, like I keep saying. Most of these sentiments have existed, but now you could tell that things are actually shifting. Surveys now show that increasing concerns among Canadians about the country's capacity to support high levels of immigration. We have surveys showing that there's increasing concerns among Canadians about the country's capacity to support high level of immigration, because in the past, Canada has been very open to receiving people, but now they are beginning to see that they might not have the capacity, and a lot of things are going to change, because with things like housing affordability and access to healthcare, are frequently cited as the top issue, because with a lot of people coming in, there's great concern that housing is not going to be affordable as it was before, and free healthcare might be something that might have to change, because there's going to be strain on the system, because now you need to take care of a lot of people that you haven't planned for. And these concerns have influenced the federal policies, with the government adopting a more cautious approach to immigration. Additionally, the 2025 federal elections is expected to further shape the immigration discourse, as political parties present differing strategies to addressing the public concerns while supporting economic needs. So one thing we have to also keep an eye on is the federal elections, because whoever is elected in the next election, things are going to change. Whether the current government is maintained or they are kicked out, one thing is known for sure: in 2025, things are going to change. So if you have any plans, my advice is this is the time to kick them into motion to avoid any surprises. So personally, these are a few things that I felt I should share with you as we enter 2025, so that if you are somebody who is currently in the country, or you are somebody outside the country looking into the country, you might now look at them well and review your plans and strategize accordingly. I always say that failing to plan is planning to fail. So it's important that you plan accordingly and execute it accordingly. And as you plan, you also be mindful of how things are evolving around you. If you got value out of this video, kindly hit the like button so that YouTube will see value in this video. And also feel free to share this video with family and friends that you think will see it valuable. And I always say that leave your comments in the comments area. Let's engage with each other and learn from each other. Let me know what you think 2025 is going to bring us with respect to Canada immigration. And also let me know what your strategy is, and let's engage in the comment area. Until the next video, I'll say cheers.